Welcome back, my dear students. Today we are going to talk about how we get our personality orientation. We learned already some extent that our personality is made of both our nature as well as our nurture. What we get as DNA from our parents as well as the nurture, the atmosphere, the environment, the situation in which we grew up, including our parents and siblings and neighbors and peer groups, and the cultural, religious environment we grew up. All that is part of our making of the personality. PGL is all about understanding relationships. Our life is made of relationships, whether good or bad, whether advisable or not advisable. We got to accept that you can't live in an island. You can't live in isolation. It's all about relationship. And so we shall watch that video first. I'm sure you got some picture of what does relationship mean in our life and what kind of emotions emerge from this relationship and how they nurture and make us grow. Under different personality theories, we have learned that we are affected by what we call the animal instinct, which we can call our nature. We get from our DNA in a way. Then from the parental upbringing, we also pick up that finally, as we grow up, we decide to be this adult. We already learned that from Eric Berne and Freud about id, ego, superego. Got some picture of that. The animal might be representing the child part of us, the spontaneous, natural child. What Berne calls child and Freud calls id. Okay, and what Berne calls parent and Freud calls what? Superego. Berne calls adult and Freud calls ego. At the very outset, I would like to show you 3 little videos. One is a monkey being very assertive that you like to get pure milk. He doesn't want his boss to share that. So we share some of these animal nature within us, the fight or the flee. The second is an African lemur who is seeking some affection, some stroking. So he's kind of inviting them, negotiating. The third one is a boy in a restaurant, how badly treated. And yet, humiliated, yet he's a caring boy in his own personal life as he feeds his own sister outside. And so these are indications show we share animal, parent, and adult behaviors. And in life, we are called constantly to modify behavior, learn from life, learn from animal, learn from our situation. And you say what works and what doesn't work, what seems to be good and some not good. And we can modify our own behavior. For success, behavior is the key.
Zanuam amizay ko harang sasahita. Harun dai. Sure. Harun dai kere.
പളുങ്കുകൾ ചിതറി വീഴുമീ നിമിഷസാഗരം ശാന്തമാകുമോ അകലെ അകലെ എവിടെയോ നോവിന്നലഞ്ഞോഞ്ഞുവോ നീർപ്പളുങ്കുകൾ ചിതറി വീഴുമീ സാഗരം ശാന്തമാകുമോ മേഘമേ നിന്റെ ഉള്ളിലെ നൊമ്പരങ്ങളും പെയ്തൊഴിഞ്ഞുവോ കണ്ണുനീർക്കണം കന്മദങ്ങളാ കല്ലിനുള്ളിലും ഈറനേകിയോ എങ്ങുമ്പോഴും കേഴുന്നു നീ വേഴാമ്പലിൽ കേഴും മനം ഏതേതോ കനവിന്റെ കനിവിന്റെ തീരങ്ങളിൽ നോവിൻ തിരഞ്ഞൊറിഞ്ഞു നീ പളുങ്കുകൾ ചിതറി വീഴുമീ നിമിഷസാഗരം ശാന്തമാകുമോ പിന്നിലാവുമായി മാഞ്ഞ പഞ്ചമി രാത്രിനാവിൽ നീ യാത്രയാകയോ നീന്തി നീന്തി നിൻ പാൽനയമ്പുകൾ പാതി തേഞ്ഞതും നീ മറന്നുവോ ശശികാന്തമായി അലിയുന്നു നിൻ ചിരിയുവാൻ കിളിമാനസം ഓരോരോ കരിമേഘനിഴലായി മൂടുന്നുവോ രാവിൻ മിഴി നനഞ്ഞുവോ നീ പളുങ്കുകൾ ചിതറി വീഴുമീ നിമിഷസാഗരം ശാന്തമാകും.
So let's see this application of these psychologists thinking and their philosophy in connection with our Enneagram numbers, so that we know where we might be falling in. I'm putting an additional Indian term, the animal instinct, id, child, shishubhav, and the parent instinct, superego, and pitrubhav, and pakvabhav. So shishubhav, born with parental influence and training and nurturing, the pitrubhav, and finally we grow as an adult. We take something from the shishu we are born with and something from the parent pitru and create our own little bhav, our own personhood, pakwa. Okay, that growth or that combination is what we are trying to call as an adult. Okay, you're with me. We also learned that the temperament is from nature. Okay, so you realize that MBTI talk about temperament. We can call it even animal instinct there. Okay, and personality, nature, and nurture. We learned that, and nurture. Okay, I'm putting them now together here. If you take the gut is here. This is the gut number. Okay, if you take the first number of gut, the heart, and the head, we can see how these are formed there, the first numbers there. Okay, so there is the id, So 8, 3, 7 and 1, half and half, part of it, tend to be id controlled, the nature or the child control. The two are more nurturing or criticizing or controlling type of person there, parental. So 2, 6 and part of 1 and 7. So notice 1 and 7 can be either id oriented person or superego, parent oriented person. And finally adult 5, 9, 4. So this gives you a basic picture of the personality styles of these numbers. Okay, so check where you belong to and see that your behavior is in link with this, in lieu of this kind of a orientation. So Shishubhav, Pitrubhav, Pakvabhav. I just gave some examples from the scripture there. There's a story of a woman caught in adultery, and the woman is like the child, and the younger son and the prodigal son is similar to that. And the Pharisee here who accuses the woman, and the elder son also accuses the younger son. And here the story, the father, and so similarity of understanding these personalities we come across in life, families, and stories. Excuse me, the movie stories, in movies and all, you'll find these. So I gave you 2 stories some of you are familiar with. A child, if you have done some of these TA program, has 2 orientations: adopted child and rebellious child. Some children are very obedient and they get along well with the parents, adopted. Some are rebellious, always fighting with them. So it can be both sides. Okay, so there are 8 who are more AC, there are 8 who are also RC, rebellious. Same way with the other numbers along with that. Okay, and parental numbers, as you see here, can be nurturing parent, like we say a mother nurturing, or a critical parent like a father. Not necessarily, it can be ultra also. So you can be a 2 who are very nurturing and a 2 also very critical. A 6 same way, and 1 and 7. Okay. Finally, you need to know adult is the combination of the C, child, and P, parent. Okay, so you got a picture of that. And what does the child? Child is the one who meets the needs in us. Maslow. Child will feel immediately the hunger, I'm cold, I am alone, I'm lonely. Child reminds you of eating and going to toilet and meeting somebody. I need to have fun now, I need to TV and all these are child. I need my freedom. I need to be spontaneous. I don't want to sit, like this in the table in the classroom. I like to do what I want, spontaneous. What is Priya? What is nice to me? What I like? What is comfortable? And the parent put the strictures and say, you have to follow the rules, the maps, structures, discipline. What is appropriate now? I told you I'd behave well when you go to a temple or go to a church or somewhere. We go to the relative's house. You have got to behave this way. So, parent want you to follow the maps, the rules, the religious strictures, whatever, discipline. What's appropriate? So, child want what is spontaneous, okay, and the parents want you to follow the maps there. Child want what is Priya, and the parent says what is Shreya, appropriate. So you'll see that the combination, the child want freedom, parents say discipline. Okay, so you'll find this constant conversation between the two, even in our mind, in our conscience, because both are sitting there, child and parent. The combination of the C and the P, parent. Okay, you can't see the P there, but P there. Okay, adult is the adult. How much of each is within us will determine our personality eventually. You have more of the child, more of the parent, whatever it is, it will determine exactly how your life and personality are going to be. Okay. So, what does this animal instinct mean? An animal in danger does one of the two things. What are the one of the two things? Either they will fight or they will flee. So, this is the natural instinct of an animal, and we too have that, to fight or to flee. But the human beings have a third option we call figure out. You see, even monkeys and dogs, sometimes you can play around you. They know when they like you, somebody, they'll bark or whatever. But they know how to adjust. You know. As we often say in Karnataka, "Sulpa adjust madi," and they know how to adjust there. So, what does that mean actually? In management, we are teaching you the combination in a way very well. What is that combination? Suppose you walk into a train and somebody is sitting in your train seat. The fight people say, "Oh, excuse me, sir, it's my seat. Please get up." You know, children are like this. But you know, if you are a A317, all might say, "Okay, I want my seat." If you are 5 or a 4, you say, "Oh, how to say? He's a big man. He got a mustache. I don't want to make a jamela here, make a trouble here. I don't want any jagda. Maybe I'll sit here later. I'll talk to him." And he said, "If it's all right, you see, I got a little back pain, and you know, my mom told me to take that corner seat is given to you so that you can lean and all that." "Oh, no problem, ma'am. Come and sit here. It's all right. I happen to be sitting here." So, you know, there are people who know how to negotiate, figure out, and negotiate. Okay. And what does this say in management that we speak of? You know, type A, type B. Fight is the type A, and flee is the type B. And negotiate. It's the term we have learned, but we use now a modern term. What is that modern term? It says, this also we learned. Sorry, missed that. What is the modern term we'll speak about? When you fight, what you're saying, I win, you lose. It's very important to understand that principle there. When I flee, I lose, you win. Today, management is teaching what? Negotiate means win-win. So the middle portion here is the win-win. Move towards, move against, move away, but move towards. You win, I win. If I give a good product and the customer is happy, he feels I got my price worth of the product. It's worth it, it's valuable, useful, and the service is very good. Then what happens? They buy more. They say more in the social media about it. So you win. You make profit, you sell more. So today market is teaching this win-win. It's coming from this instinct within us and instincts that you see around us. And so we are learning this aspect of win-win, even from the animal instinct. So 891, figure out and flee. So let's put it together now. So we are saying that these people have a tendency in Enneagram, you put the numbers like this. So 5 people are there in the Enneagram. And these are the figure out people, and this is the flea people. So the head, this is the gut, okay, the heart and the head. So 891, though they are they are different. I'll come to that in a minute. Their fighting ways are different than we normally know. So that's what we call the emotion of anger for fighting. Emotion of anger for fighting. And emotion of anxiety for negotiation. So anxiety is an emotion between anger and fear. So you have some anger, that means I don't want to lose. Some fear, I don't want the other person to lose, think bad about me. So it is an emotion between anger and fear. So anxiety. Anxiety, I don't want to lose, I don't want the other person to lose either. So I lose my friendship. So therefore they go into negotiate. And all of us have a link towards that. Interestingly, the 8 here, 8 has the element of expressing directly their anger. They directly express the anger. Whereas the ones will, repress the anger. They show us impatient, they show us, you can see the body sometimes showing the anger, but they don't like to become perfection. Number ones are perfection. They don't want to show directly anger. So they kind of merge the anger within them. And 9s, most of the time, they repress the anger. They are like the elephant, most of the time they're calm and nice and friendly. Even children can play around. Once in 10 years, they will get a muck. Then you better be away, far away. They destroy everything and bring down the tree and topple the vehicles and all. So the animal is, elephant 9s. So they don't generally get angry every day. When you come to the anxiety, the 2s will express the anxiety into service and caring and all that. They will express directly, appreciate people and all that. And 4s will internalize the anger. They won't show it directly outside. Okay, they internalize the anger. The anxiety. They're very careful. And 3s will repress it. Normally we call the business people, Ambanis and all, number 3 element. Basically they don't want to show their actual feeling in public. Even if they don't like the customer, they try to please the customer, to be nice to them, so they succeed with the business, succeed with their job, their product. We come back to the elements of fear. You see there again, 7s will bring it out in joy, dancing, and take the guitar and play and make fun. Externalize it. Take out the fear as if there is no fear. They live as if there is no fear. Of course, they have fear, but they will show. Many of these comedian actors have got a lot of sorrow within them. But externally, they look like they're very happy people expressed. 5s will internalize. They're basically introvert. Therefore, they go into reading, they go into themselves, they live alone. Most of the time, they are loners. They are actually good in studies. Very often, they sit alone. And the 6 will repress it, care for the community and care for the people. They are community people, most of them. So you see that. So look at again. 827 externalize their feeling. 145 internalize, and 936 will repress it. Repress means put it under the rug, put it down as if nobody sees your actual feelings. Okay. I'm going to show you a video about this boy who gets a job as a bagger boy in a mall. Beggar boy means, the checkout counter abroad. If you go, there are many checkout counters, maybe 12 more, people with the two or three things, two people with the 12 and more, people with just one, and all that. And as they bring in the thing, there is a beggar boy sitting there, and the things are, scanned and brought in. Boom, and he fills it and gives it. But he was a little retarded boy, and he decided to use his, in a way, inability as an ability. We'll see what he does and how he succeeds. So, what number we have is not important. What talent we have is not important. How we use it. Like the boy, he was able to use that talent so beautifully well, and people were lining up on that particular counter because the boy was there, the beggar boy. We'll see the movie and see what he particularly did. In the story of the beggar boy, his Down syndrome, despite his inability, his illness, and a simple job like beggar boy, he comes something innovative. When we learn Maslow's need hierarchy, there are needs up there we don't often recognize. To be teased, to be inspired, to be enlightened, to be touched, to be moved. and people look up to that. That's why that's a spiritual element, there is a artistic element, there is a now nature element. We are all enthused. And the boy taps into that by a little quotation that he gives freely along with their wares, the things they buy, putting that little quotation touched people. There was such a long queue at his counter. So behavior modification, looking for a particular need. In management, these are two important things to learn from, and especially from this boy's story. We continue to understand this, how we get this personality orientation to the second part. The parent instinct. From the animal instinct, we go to the parent instinct or superego. When a child is hungry, does a mother know? Or when a child cries, does a mother automatically know why the child is crying? The question asked when most of your women, when you have a child in the future, uh, does the mother know automatically? And most women will answer me, yes. And I say, no. When you are first time a mother, you don't know why the child is crying. You're going to find out. Birds, find out. And so the mothers find out eventually. In the beginning, why the baby is crying, you may not know. A baby cries usually because it's hungry and need to be fed. It's lonely, nobody is around, it needs to be held. It's dirty and it needs to be cleansed. And finally, it is sick and need to be healed. So babies cry basically for 4 reasons. And a mother, as I said, need to discern and find out why the baby is crying. And therefore she can address. Many mothers have a tendency to automatically pick up the baby and breastfeed. Because in our mind, if a guest comes, the first thing we do is bring food there. The story of Martha and Mary. Martha wants to feed. The real thing is, if Aditi Deva Bhav, then you ask the Aditi, would you like coffee or tea? Would you like with sugar or without sugar? Would you like to have something? The guest is the face of God, as the Indian Samskritis say. Therefore, you ask the guest, what shall I bring? Not bring something because you automatically do what you are taught to do. Bring tea or bring water. No, find out. What shall I get? That is the way you respect the guest. Okay. So mother is also tendency to feed automatically with the breast. Now there is a study made. Why does a mother automatically do that? We'll come to that. So mother's instinct is, or their conclusion is, what? If I give the breast, it means milk. It means food. It means life. We also bring automatically tea or coffee or water because that is life, no? The person must be hungry, person must be tired, and we must do that. So for us, hospitality equal to giving some food. That's one time when he came to the house of Martha and Mary, and she thought she had to make something for him. Maybe he came to say hello. Could I ask him, would you want some coffee or tea? Shall I bring something? No, I just came to talk to you. Respect the guest. Respect the guest. So, why does a mother do that? There's a study, it is all beliefs. We learn eventually from our parents beliefs. So beliefs and values come from the parents. And through our culture, through our religion, through our particular location, we have these beliefs drummed into our system and we act out of that wherever we go. Some of them are good, some of them are wonderful. We have great sense of hospitality in our country, no matter who the guest is. So this is good because we have a belief that food is life. It is a human natural thing to do to feed the guest, to take care of the guest. Secondly, when people see it is a socially acceptable attitude, the guest is taken care. She is feeding the baby. Excuse me. The baby cried and the mother is feeding. Anybody sees that looks like a wonderful mother. The acceptable attitude. But there's unknown, unconscious dynamics as well. The feeding the baby also gives stimulation to the mother. And so a woman can do this for her own stimulation naturally without even thinking unconsciously and don't think of the need of the child since it's socially acceptable. Food is life. In giving, I also get some pleasure and guests say, oh, so wonderful woman, a wonderful person, so hospitable. As soon as I came, he brought me tea. So our need for certain patting on the back as well as this. So mothers can do without knowing. They don't find out, does the baby really need food now or really need to be cleaned up? Maybe just to help, maybe my presence here, maybe just rock the what is that called, cradle. Maybe that's all required at that time. Our personality, they say, it is already developed within our womb some extent, within the womb of the mother. That's why after 6 months you say, the baby moves, they kick, and mothers say, they kick here, they start moving there. In fact, the husband can talk to the baby after 6 months through the womb, and the child recognizes the sound of the father, of the man. And as soon as you hear the voice again, the child will stir. That's why Elizabeth said, the child stirred in my womb, 6 months. So this is already recorded there and it happens to people there. So therefore you can make a conversation. That's the time also for the women to do the exercise for the delivery 6 months, from 6 months. So it's oriented in the womb. And what a mother does, that's why they need to be psychologically very attentive to the child at that time. Especially those months are very important. The connection with the husband, connection with the family, the thought she has, all that is going to make the development within the child there, within the womb there. There are 3 cells grow in the womb. Ecto, the brain cells, we learned these terms earlier. And the fat cells are called endo, and the mezzo, with a T, muscle cells. So 3 cells grow in the womb. And you notice that there is the hormone that goes into the womb, into the fetus inside. That's called ACTH, adrenaline corticocortex, tropic hormone. There's a valve in the womb, the fetus, which prevents other things from getting inside the womb to protect the baby. However, if a mother is highly anxious, she is disturbed, she is stressed, this ACTH hormone will enter through even the valve and change the growth of the baby. Either the ecto cells are affected or endo or mezzo. Which is why 2 brothers or 2 siblings are different in personality. The state of the mother at that time what was the state during that time is important. So know that all of your women, but particularly know that the growth takes place. So either you develop for the head person ecto, or a heart person endo, or a muscle person or a gut person from the mezzo. So the disturbance or any kind of stress at that time to be avoided, and it will affect the growth of the babies. Okay. So what all the beliefs that we are talking about? As a human being, as a mother, and as a woman. Human is hungry, need to be fed. Mother, the child here, you have to respond. As a woman, you have body needs. So you are a human being, you are also mother, you are also woman. So values, needs, and attitudes. So these are three things come out of the belief system. The belief, value, needs, attitudes. What's the next one? Behavior. What we see outside is only the behavior. We don't see the rest of it. We only see the behavior outside. But they're all coming from beliefs, values. So this is how these things are developed within the womb of the child, womb of the mother, and given to the child. You've seen that before, so I'm going to skip that. It's important to see again those 3 points I mentioned to you, how this attitude determines. So ability you have, but motivation determines, and attitude is how well you do. This thing, if we can look at this, I'm going to put that together there again. Okay. The effectiveness you have or success you have in life, in a future manager or supervisor working in a company, is the ability to combine all these three things: the child, the parent, and the adult. You notice the values are here. When the child is in consonance with that, beyond the need, the child goes to the values, and the adult goes to attitudes. So when you have the values in the middle, and you meet your needs according to the values, what does that mean? I feel like going to the bathroom, but this is class time, this is official time, this is not a good time to go, I'll have to wait. So I have to meet my need according to certain value system. I like to take bath, I like to have a shower, but I don't take bath in front of the building. Oh, I like to come to the class in a bikini or in a shorts, and we know it's not appropriate. So your need and the attitude required in that particular place, you begin to adapt to that. So when you adapt to that particular thing, oh, this is the appropriate dress, this is the appropriate time to meet my needs, going to the toilet or eating or something, then you are successful or effective. Your success is when you do the social consistency comes in. Okay, are you getting that? So this connection is the whole point there to learn. You notice that the success becomes little less when you are psychologically consistent. You are true to yourself. Therefore, you are psychologically consistent because you are true to yourself. But you are not having an attitude for the public life, for the classroom, for that office. When you go to temple or church, you need an attitude. You're not dressed properly for that. You don't care about it. Personally, you are living true to yourself. True to yourself, fine. We use certain language to people, the elders, your officials, your teachers, your director, your dean. This is an attitude. Oh, I don't believe in calling people like that. That is so you are consistent with yourself, but you are not effective because the reaction from other people. So behavior at the end of it makes the difference here, attitude. I hope you're getting that. Look now, you have got another approach here. This person is not, look here, there, not psychologically consistent but socially consistent. So they know how to play the game in public. A lot of politicians succeed that way. Namaskara, sir. So they know how to show like this, bend like this, and bring gifts like this, stand like this. So they socially show, publicly, externally show an attitude to please your boss or please somebody. But inside you'll be showing something else, behaving some other way because you don't believe in that. They say eventually the company, other people find out that one day it will leak out, one day it will come out. And in life, you have seen most of these are come out one day or other. So you can play that game for a short while, and you get eventually caught with that. So they call it, socially, psychologically consistent and succeed temporarily. They seem to succeed sometime. Finally, you have the socially inconsistent people. Again, you look at very carefully here. Both your needs, you have a negative need in these two cases. Your need is different than what is publicly expressed, and you don't have an attitude here. Such people will never succeed, they say. These people succeed sometime because pleasing them, buttering them, they succeed sometime. But they eventually fall out because their game will be out soon. So if you have a serious inconsistency within you psychologically, even if you adapt temporarily socially with people, eventually the game will be out. So these people are rebellious people. They won't show respect to the parents or elders to any sacred place anywhere, nor do they have any desire to please. Of course, they have given up their life, so they will show their rebellion everywhere, which means suppose they won't succeed. We come to the third part. We went through the child, we went through the parent, now we come to the adult instinct. I begin with a story. There was a man standing on the top of a bridge, middle of the night, looking down. And a politician came by late night, and he saw this man standing, and suddenly he said, please come down, please down, let's talk about it, let's come down. He brought him down from the bridge, put his arm around him. I know you must be upset, very upset. Even my life, I got upset many times with my bosses. I was very, very upset. Even I thought of committing suicide, one day. What's the use of serving the party and all that? They give all favors to, their friends and their family. But, I didn't give up. I didn't give up. I succeeded. And therefore, you shouldn't give up on your life. Okay? Be strong, be bold. You must succeed. And as they walked along, the politician said to him, if you are really, take time about it, go home. Go home. Enter your home, close the door, and go to your bedroom. And if you feel still upset, very upset, and angry with some people, you know what you should do? Quietly hang yourself. Don't trouble other people. Quietly hang yourself. Don't take your life. Don't disturb other people. You may laugh. The next day, another man was standing on the top of the bridge, and a social worker woman was coming on her scooter. So this man on the top, she stopped and said, please, please, stop, 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 come down. I want to talk to you. Please come down. When he came down, he said, oh, thank God, I brought you down, Why want you to do that? Do what? The man asked. Why want to commit suicide? He said, commit suicide? Well, who is committing suicide? What are you doing on the top of the bridge? Well, I am the PWD inspector. I'm checking the bridge. So you see the two stories. I gave a male character for the politician and a female character for the social worker, to show that love has two sides. We learned already, the male side and the female side. And so here the politician represents the male side and the female side. You see that, two sides. And I put it as continue. The word continue means a little bit of that we have. We may not have extreme end and extreme end, but a little bit of, all of us got the male and female side. Like the politician, the male side can be tough. The child, the son has not taken his dinner because he upset, asked for extra money and they didn't give. So he is not coming down for dinner. Dinner time came and mommy said, no, he has not eaten. He'll come when he's hungry. Don't worry. He'll come when he's hungry. So men very often say, well, let him hang himself. That means he will take your time. Mommy cannot eat without baby eating. So she goes up, come on, eat something. No, I don't want mommy. I got some milk and poured in his mouth. He said, drink something because mommy won't be here. That's called tender. Female love is like that. He cannot just say, when he's hungry, he'll come back. So the male love can be interference. So tough love, we call it interfering. They'll interfere for discipline, for their good, to change them, to challenge them, to expand their boundary. They will do. So men tend to interfere. Men tend to become indifferent. And the women tend to be interfering. You're studying well, you're okay. You want to eat something, you want to drink something. So the left brain, right brain part of our love, you'll see these two sides. The male side indifferent and the female side interfering. So we already learned some kind of a definition. Let us get this aspect of these. So our natural understanding of love is, when I love, I make sacrifices. When I make sacrifice, I have expectations. Which is why most teachers, most parents, most religious leaders have expectations from their community, their children, their wards, their students, because they make sacrifice, their expectations. And many times our expectations get frustrated. If you have a girlfriend or a boyfriend and you invest into her and into him time, money, food, ice cream, movies, your expectations. When I call, she should answer. So those expectations get frustration. And this frustration will bring what? These three emotions: anger, anxiety, and fear. So you know why Enneagram has put these three as the major emotions around these 9 numbers. So 891 has to do with anger, 2, 3, 4 anxiety, 5, 6, 7 fear. So if you ask the question, where do these emotions come from? Basically love. Love, frustrated. expectations frustrated because I made sacrifice. You can't love without sacrifice. Can you ever do that? Some sort of tyag, some kind of sacrifice we all do. And therefore we have expectation, frustration. So positively, anger also means many other things. Courage, risk, sacrifice, leadership, hard work, responsibility. So 8, 9 do all of kind of these things. Anxiety, generosity, gentleness, humility, thoughtfulness, sensitivity, availability, positivity. Or for the head, it is a wisdom, joy, solitude, faithfulness, community, reflective, peace, loving. So these are positive side, and negatively, the same people also can become very critical. That's why the gut people can be critical, punishing, preachy, reforming, confrontational, and they can become manipulative, hard people, diplomatic, pleasing, winning, dishonest, and unreliable. And fear people become rigid, they withdraw, insecure, stubborn, superficial, insensitive. So these are ways anger, anxiety, and fear will work positively and negatively. We'll give more later, but you have a quick picture of how these things work. Proper love, good love should be what? I use the word discern. That means really reflected, meditated, proper or divine way. What would be that? I need to discern. Everybody has a need. I don't have to address and take care. Everyone who comes to me, I don't have to help. I'm a limited human being. I have limited money, resources, time available. If I have an exam tomorrow and this evening, as I am studying, a friend calls me, can I come over and study with you? Suppose you are a person cannot study with somebody else, you will not remember, but he is a friend. I'm sorry, my parents are spending so many lakhs to send me here. I owe to them and to myself that I study now alone. But that's how I can study. I'm sorry. Had you called me a few days ago, I would have probably helped you. That's a discerned answer. If your parents are borrowing the money and sending you for your education, and somebody wants to borrow from you, and you have no guarantee of getting the money back, and you need to pay for your food and other things, well, that money doesn't belong to you. You have no responsibility or reason to give that money in loan to somebody else. It's always a good friend of mine. That's where discernment is required. A lot of the time we misunderstand what love is in life. You have to be a good manager, a good supervisor, a good businessman. You have to know these values because your behavior, PGL is all about behavior at the end of the day. Needs and behavior, these two words you have to keep always in mind. Okay, that's why I taught about Maslow, and at the end of it, we learned about the second part is Erikson. How to keep your identity and how it can be generative. Both have to go together, but you have to discern at this time I must take care of myself or take care of other. Am I capable of taking care of other? Is it with my money I am taking? So you have to think seriously this thing. So I discern and make sacrifice. Not automatically. Am I capable of that? You need to love, you need to make sacrifice. But I have to discern before I make sacrifice. And then you gift it if it is yours. And let go. I gifted it and grieve it. Let go. It may come back, it may not come back. Goodbye. Don't hold on to that. Go on, tell everybody, I've done this, I did. No. And so then I'm free. Then I'm free. Then there is no anger, anxiety, and fear necessarily bothering you. So that is the definition I'm going to give you. Love is the will. Notice here, will. Okay, we learned that from MBTI. Life is about decisions, and you need information correctly. Good information, and you have to analyze, interpret the information. Okay, that's where you take decisions properly. Whether it is objective, also it is, subjective, in a sense, sensitive to the other person. So it's a will to expand and transcend my boundaries. The parents may have put some boundaries, society or religion may have put some boundaries, some strictures, some restriction. I don't do those things usually. I can expand that boundary. I can transcend the boundary. I can alter the boundary. Love is that will you alter. When you fall in love with the opposite sex, you know that you're expanding your boundary. Your thinking style will change. With a woman coming into your life, a man coming into your life, and from another family, another culture, therefore you have to expand. So life is always, when you come to Bangalore from another city, you change, and so life is all the time expanding boundaries. People go from this country to another country, food habits and behaviors and style. Life is constantly expanding, transcending, altering boundaries. That is the way we grow. So generativity, growth means expanding, altering, or transcending boundaries. And what is the purpose? It is not for excitement, just for fun of it. No. To nurture, I have other options to nurture your own growth in life, your own mission in life, your own communion with other people. So in order to be in relation with another person, another culture, another gender, and nurture that, I need to expand my part. So what is the definition of love? Love is the will to expand or alter or transcend your boundaries. That means boundaries are created by our parents or our culture or our religion, society. I expand that, and for the purpose of nurturing, making grow, generative, my own mission in life, my own job, my own business, and in relation with the people, communion with the people, and my own growth in life. Let us put it together. The animal instinct, already learned, figure out or negotiate. The additional from fight or flee. Parents give you beliefs and values. Okay, needs, attitudes, and behavior there. Adult, the tough and tender love, freedom and responsibility. So when you combine all these three together, the animal, the parent, the adult, the three instincts in our life will combine together. So when I ask you in the exam, what are the three instincts that create our personality? You know the answer now. The animal instinct, okay, the parent instinct, and the adult instinct, coming from both Freud as well as Eric. I suppose you can get that, and you know the components of all that. So the animal instinct is fight and flee and negotiate, win-win at the end of it. And parent instinct, superior, it has got these elements of beliefs, values, needs, attitudes, finally behaviors come from that. And the adult instinct has the tough and tender love, leading towards freedom and responsibility.